With many questions surfacing regarding the use of the credit card issued to former Education Minister Will Reid, Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips says while he believes there should be per diem for government ministers to cover day-to-day out-of-pocket expenses, it would be best for a permanent secretary to handle bigger expenditures.
I personally prefer the question of having a reasonable per diem allowance and allowing that to be provided to the ministers to meet any out-of-pocket expenses. It is in a general case where there is a need for extraordinary expenditures, such as a minister having to entertain in the case of a foreign minister or some other minister, then I think the best person to exercise those expenditures would be a permanent secretary or other public service official.
Dr. Phillips adds that private spending are sometimes charged to the government's account and says there needs to be a policy to distinguish the expenses.
Remember, in the case of Petrojam, there was a lot of evidence, I think, presented to the parliamentary committee that a lot of private expenses, including private travel expenses, were charged to the government's account, in this case Petrojam. And it always is the question of how do you monitor the expenditures, how do you distinguish what is private.
Research is now being conducted by the Education Ministry to determine whether the government-funded credit card issued to former Minister Will Reid was used in breach of a directive from the Finance Ministry. Minister with responsibility for education, Carl Samuda, says the credit card issued to the former minister with an over $2,000 limit was used for necessities such as gas and travel.
The limit on the card was US 3,800 payable by the ministry upon use. The card was used for the purpose of gasoline, to cover some hotel charges, book charges, and for some air travel related charges.
A 2009 circular from the Ministry of Finance allows for credit cards to be issued to ministers of government with a $2,500 limit on international cards. Kimberly Broderick, Frontline News.